Ladies and gentlemen, we have an absolute battle royale right now on our hands between the networks Fox and ESPN over Michigan football. And guys, the reason for this is because ESPN owns virtually no rights to Michigan football for the foreseeable future. Fox has a heavy vested interest in Michigan. So you're having all the ESPN people come out and say what Michigan did was terrible. They should be punished. Paul Feinbaum, who originally said that he didn't think it was that bad, has now completely backtracked, done a 180, and said that after the information has come out, Michigan needs to be severely punished. And then you've got the Fox guys kind of doing a counter strike here. You got to feel really bad for Joel Klatt. There's no way that he really believes any of this crap. But both of these networks understand the narrative is so important with a story like this because there is no precedent. Meaning if the Big Ten punishes Michigan or if the NCAA punishes Michigan, it's setting a new standard. So theoretically, they could go really soft on Michigan and set a standard or go really hard. They could do either or because it's not like we can say, oh, so-and-so cheated in 2014 by stealing signs, not legally. They got a bull ban for 2 years. We would expect Michigan to get the same thing. There's been nothing like that. So the narrative in this story is so important. And remember, guys, as long as that really was Connor Stalions on the sideline, and by the way, I don't know what's happening right now with Central Michigan, why it would take this long to come out and say it's him, it's not him. They played Tuesday night. It's been 4 days at this point of their investigation. A lot of people think possibly he was wearing some sort of Ray-Ban spy glasses. You could see the little light up thing, little fixture in the corner to spy on Michigan State's sideline the night before Michigan played. Obviously, Michigan State played this year. Michigan won. I'm guessing MSU changed their signs, but that's a whole nother issue because the new argument now that Michigan fans are trying to make is, oh, just change your signs. It's not a big deal. It's going to be fair. No, we're not going to take dedicated practice time out of our schedules to teach our players new signs just because you guys cheated. That's not how it works. You should be punished, and really you should be honestly forfeiting your games. I think that's a light thing. And now you've got Purdue's coach coming out and saying, first-year head coach, the former defensive coordinator at Northwestern, he's admitting, he's like, listen, it's already been proven. Everyone's talking about it. They are stealing signs. They even stole Purdue's signs. And it wouldn't surprise me. A lot of people are saying, why would they need to steal Purdue signs? They stole everyone's signs. If that really is Connor Stalions on a Friday night when Michigan is already vastly superior to Michigan State, if he would really risk that and go on there, that is 1,000% illegal. Like this whole argument of, is it legal, is it not legal? If that's Connor Stalions, it's done. It's illegal. They're going to be punished with something. It's just not legal to do that. You cannot do that. It is illegal. You cannot go, let alone on an opposing sideline to look right across the field at the plays. That's completely illegal. It would be illegal if he was just in the stands. That's what we were trying to sparse out. And we thought maybe Michigan would try and, maneuver and say, oh, these people were not part of our staff, so we can get away with it. It's a loophole. But if that is Connor Stalions, which it's just so remarkable if that actually was him, that is 1,000% illegal. And you're trying to see a narrative. Here's Joel Klatt. Lots of sources and articles about how mad opposing coaches are about Michigan. He's referencing the Big Ten meeting. Now, the Big Ten coaches apparently were very pissed off that the College Football Playoff Committee basically said nothing when it comes to possibly doing something about Michigan. They said, we're not taking that into account at all. So I'm guessing about about an hour after the College Football Playoff Committee said that, there was that Big Ten coaches call, and that's when the Big Ten coaches started to really put pressure on the Big Ten commissioner to do something to Michigan. That's what he's referencing. The level of anger has a direct relationship with the success Michigan has had over the last 2 seasons. Also, the level of anger is not grounds for an unprecedented overreach from the commish. So obviously, there's no way that Joel Klatt believes this. This is just a very stupid thing to say. The idea that, because Michigan's had success over the past 2 years, everyone's just trying to punish them. Well, maybe there's a correlation of them blatantly cheating the last 2 years with the amount of success that they've had. Remember, it's not like their recruiting has drastically improved and they're suddenly recruiting at an Ohio State or an Alabama level. They're not. Also, Ohio State won the Big Ten like 5 straight years. You think Big Ten coaches weren't mad about that? So it's obvious this is coming directly from Fox. Fox has a massive interest in the Michigan-Ohio State game this year. It's the highest rated game every single year. If Jim Harbaugh were to get suspended, if something came down on Michigan, that would severely hurt the overall revenue that they would be making from that game. It is by far, at least the past 4 or 5 years, that has been the number one game in the sport. And this year, just like last year where it was 11-0 versus 11-0, we could possibly get a 1 versus 2 matchup, a 1 versus 3, a 2 versus 3, depending on if Georgia loses. Yeah, you're going to have all these Fox people come out, try and control the narrative, try and say what Michigan did isn't that bad, because the narrative is so important with something like this because we can't compare it to anything else in terms of a cheating scandal, especially during the season. Like the idea of punishment during the season, we haven't seen anything like this. But I think the Big Ten coaches, they've probably been talking for a while now. They know this is going on. And again, if Michigan fans want to try and argue that, oh, they're just doing this because we're so good, every team does this, why wouldn't the Big Ten coaches band together against Ohio State 3 years ago when Ohio State, what was Urban Meyer's record in the Big Ten? Was Urban Meyer like 60-4 in the Big Ten or something? Like, wouldn't they just go against Ohio State? Like this is just so ridiculous. It's very clear that this is next level when it comes to Michigan, their cheating culture, and it might even be worse when you've got, I think one of their offensive coach charged with computer crimes. I'm not going to, really talk about that because it hasn't come out yet, but possibly hacking into something there with Ohio State's practice footage. Maybe we'll get that. Maybe that'll be the fatal blow to Michigan, depending on what happens here. But we are still waiting for Central Michigan to either confirm or deny on if that is Connor Stalions. A lot of people starting to think they were in on it with Michigan, considering the relationship Harbaugh has with their head coach. It'll be interesting to unpack this entire thing. And then you also do have the idea the NCAA possibly not doing anything or being very light on Michigan because of their status, how much money they bring in. They are the second biggest program in the Big Ten behind Ohio State. And that's not going to change even with the Pac-12 teams entering. They're still going to be the second biggest, even though USC is pretty big themselves. But either way, guys, that is the update. It is a total battle royale. Everyone within the ESPN networks obviously going to want Michigan to get a big penalty because they have zero rights to any of the Michigan games. They're completely shut out with the new Big Ten deal. If you guys remember the noon window on, Fox, you've got the 3:30 games happening on CBS starting next year, and then the 7:30 games on NBC, and ESPN virtually shut out of every single big Michigan football game. They have no chance of doing a Michigan-Ohio State game. If they still had the rights to Michigan versus Ohio State, certainly they would be saying a different tune. It's the same thing with Fox and Joel Klatt coming out with just a completely... Just a very strange statement, basically trying to say, oh, cheating's not a big deal. They're pissed off because Michigan's been good the last 2 years. Yeah, there's a direct correlation after Michigan went 2-4 to Michigan starting to blatantly cheat. And maybe even it might even go back further than that with Stalions being on the staff in 2019. But a lot of this comes down to revenue, and we will have to... how do you even punish Michigan? What is a proper punishment? I guess it just comes down to the amount of information they have. Remember, this goes back a few weeks to when the Big Ten team said they were going to send in security footage of the Michigan coaches or the people that were hired by Michigan to go spy on the sidelines. Apparently they have security footage, and I'm guessing they're going to want that to be public. They're going to want all the evidence out there that can be out there in trying to argue that Michigan should be punished. Obviously, I'm sure everyone's changed their plays. We're not going to come out and say, oh, if Michigan wins these next few games, they're stealing signs and stuff. Even beating Michigan State, I'm sure Michigan State changed their signs. Michigan still won 49-0. Certainly they're a great team, but there's also the idea, should we really placate to a team that cheated and basically reward them by having every other team dedicate practice hours to installing a brand new language into their offense. There's also the idea that Ohio State changed their signs prior to last year's game, but then we see multiple instances of Connor Stalions correctly calling out the play that Ohio State was going to do, and you see Michigan safeties crashing in on runs, leaving the middle of the field wide open because they know the exact play call. This stuff really is interesting, and it is terrible for the Big Ten. And if you are the Big Ten, you have to just want this stuff to go completely away, because right now the Big Ten, once again, is in a pretty favorable spot to possibly get two teams in the playoff, with Ohio State being ranked number one, with Michigan possibly, having the best overall team in the country. Sure, Michigan still has to face Penn State and Ohio State, but it is interesting. If Ohio State loses to Michigan again, we could get two teams into the playoff. And I just think at this point, no matter what happens to Michigan football, even if they brush it under the rug until the offseason, which in terms of revenue seems like the most logical thing they would do, considering you do have that big, shiny Michigan-Ohio State game at the end of the year that's going to be, possibly a 1v2 game, just massive ratings. You are going to get a level of taintedness when it comes to this Michigan football team based off of the NCAA investigations, everything that's going to be coming out of that probably in the offseason, and that's when we're going to get something. I would imagine Harbaugh, people are saying, oh, he'll just go to the NFL. I don't know what he'll do. I would imagine he would be gone, and then you would possibly get like a 1 or 2 year bull ban. But I'm just throwing random things out there at this point because it's completely unprecedented when it comes to a cheating scandal like this being broken, especially during the season. Normally something like this comes out in April, or around there, just so we can have like months to take it in and really see what's happening. The fact that it's happening during the season, and you've got coaches who are literally facing Michigan, like Purdue, coming out on like a conference call and saying, they blatantly cheated. We have this footage of them going to our games, meaning I think it was so widespread with Michigan. They pretty much went to every Big Ten team's games outside of the really bad ones, outside of like a Northwestern, outside of, I guess also they went to the Rutgers games because apparently they knew their signs as well. At least that's what Greg Schiano was insinuating. Either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.